Good morning, everyone. How you all doing out there? And let's look in here. We'll see what we got here. And all right. Oh, we got at least 6 people showing up there on the counter up at the top here. First one in today making comments was Phelan Clan Wolf, followed by Troop 1351, and then Crew 1351. And Troop 1351, it's the boys. The boys are at school, so I'm listening today, Mrs. C. All right. And let me see what else we got here. Let me get over here. And so yesterday, down, we were going through. Uh, we got up to November 3rd, and I did November 8th a little bit. And there was a crossover between this book up here and this book here. And so we jumped over to the other one and pulled that one little half chapter or little thing out of it, dealing with the conference call between the two groups. And Dave Knight's in the house. Hey, Dave. All right. So, and they were dealing between the two groups. The one group up in Idaho and the one group down in the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And so they're having a group there. And how do I want to put this? Like in the beginning of each when I go through each of the novels, I read something off on the beginning here. And let me go ahead and see if I can bring it up here. Yes. Prologue. Hang on, I'm going to see if I can find it here. Oh shoot, that's right. On this copy, I hadn't put it in there yet. I got to put it in. I still work on the table, the chapters, and the table and contents tag list, and it didn't have. Yeah, I didn't put it in here on this one. Oh, dang me, naughty me. Oh well. Hang on, let me go ahead and get this. November 3rd, back up to. There we go. Get it up to here. Anyways, I'm pulling up another one that has it on it here. So give me a second here. Okay, pull up this one here. It should have it on it. Yeah, ground rules. Okay, let me enlarge this here so I can see it right for you guys. So in the beginning of the books, let me go ahead and open this up here. Boom, there we go. All right. So, the introduction about it, and what the heck happened in the introduction? That's nuts. Something happened. I really hate what Microsoft Word is doing with the new versions. And so when I come from an old version in here, the new version is all jacked up and screwed up, and it's not keeping things like it's supposed to. So I got to, there we go. Got that back in there. See if it'll keep it this time. So I got an introduction about the multiverse here. And for the ground rules on it here is, there are differences between the universe of the Against the Wind saga and our universe. Some of them stand out like Rudolph's green nose, and others you don't hardly recognize. But the last line here, it's not sharing. Why is it not sharing? Damn it. Come on, try sharing it again. There we go. The last line here is important to realize it is warning. Special powers may or may not exist in different timelines, in different universes. So, all right. With that in mind, yesterday we got introduced to the Banshee, who has special powers because she is linked to an ancestor from 2,000 years before, who is the original Banshee from Irish legend. Okay, so let's get down here. This here's I stopped. I didn't read this part here because it was just a couple sentences and it was all the rest of it was blank. So that's what I wrote last night and today. And I also worked a little bit on this one here. So I'm going to start up here. Let me go ahead and just take this thing here out and get rid of that. I'm going to start up here with Sarah and Danny. All right, so Sarah and Danny continued their sniper training after 10 hours yesterday. Danny got better when she had added extra padding for her shoulder. Sarah shot Danny's 25 caliber Creedmoor for half an hour and switched to a 22 for her to start with. After 2 hours, she switched from the to a 22 Magnum for 2 hours, and then back to the 25 Creedmoor for the rest of the day. Today, she started with the 25 Creedmoor for 1 hour, then switched to Danny's 6.5 Creedmoor for the rest of the day. And as mentioned earlier, about that is the of those 4 rifles, the 22 is the least recoil, the 22 Magnum next, and then the 25 Creedmoor and the 6.5 Creedmoor has more recoil. Though they're all fairly close in caliber. This morning, Mary brought her dad's Savage model 340 bolt action 30-30 rifle and Lonnie's 30-30 Winchester model 1894 lever action. She told Master Sergeant Russell that Walt had several of the 1894 lever action rifles and would give one to Sarah if she wanted it. By evening, when they had to quit because of the setting sun, both Danny and Sarah were getting better. Mary asked Master Sergeant Russell what caliber he wanted to start Sarah out on tomorrow, and he said 308 and I forgot to put a word in here, and then 30-06 the next day. Mary said she would get those tomorrow. Benny and Williana had asked Sarah to come down to Cambridge for some upgrades to her armor. When Sarah got there, Mary was getting a full body scan. They told her that Mary was helping them calibrate the scan to test for her increased muscle mass due to her extensive workout program. She took note of Mary's muscle definition and thought that she needed to work on her own body. Hang on, I'm gonna correct that to Sarah. There's too many she's in there. She had been lax in exercising since she graduated high school. They told Sarah can you change that because I did more work on it this morning here. Scans were got to change reality of it there. Were for a project to protect snipers called Corporal Punishment as a pun. Sarah spotted a torso unit that was under construction. It looked to be Mary's size. Observation point. When she notices stuff like that, you want to take note because later on something's going to come up. Williana brought out another torso that was already made and had built-in compressed fuel and air tanks. Connected to tanks was a multi-port flame device that to feed the fuel to jets. Hang on, jet NOZZ nozzles at her wrist. The fuel produced green flames that were cool not hot, but very visible. As an added bonus, they were very safe. You could, if you accidentally inhaled some of it, it would not burn your lungs. It would, however, displace breathable air, and prolonged breathing would cause you to pass out. As a precaution, there was a compressed air tank that would keep the helmet at a positive air pressure even when inhaling, while the fuel was being released. Williana explained that she'd created special fire effects for Hollywood films, and this was the next generation of the flames. She helped Sarah put on the new torso unit, pointed out the fuel tanks, compressed air tank, and multi-port device. She showed her how to attach the wrist jets, and then the compressed airline to the helmet. This was one thing that Sarah had trouble with. Paulina watched as Sarah tried several times to get it to connect. She said she would work on a better connection system. Mary was able to do it quickly, but only because she was looking at it. Once the system was connected, Williana intensity of the flames and deactivate the flames. Then she had Sarah go through using them a dozen times. After that, she refilled the tanks. She told Sarah she was working on a voice modulator for the helmet and external speakers and hoped would have them ready for use in several days. Sarah then removed the armor and put it in the carrying case for it and loaded it into her F450 truck. She hugged Wallina and said she needed to get back to the ranch for some time with Walt. Wallina and Mary smiled and nodded understandingly. Sarah arrived at the ranch later than she would have liked, but she now had a better body armor setup. She walked in as they were finishing dinner. Different Mary here. This is Walt's Mary. Walt's mother, Mary. Mary said they had lots of beef. Actually, I'm going to change that from Mary. I'm going to change that to, what's the name? Hang on here. Let me bring it up. Walt's grandmother, not mother, it would be, back to the top here. Martha. Yep. Okay. Drop that down to Martha. Martha. Martha said they had lots of beef stew and mashed potatoes, and asked if she wanted some. Sarah said sure, but after she took a shower to get the funk off. After the shower and a big bowl of beef stew on top of mashed potatoes, Sarah pulled Walt to one of the recliners, sat him down, and climbed into his lap and curled up. And that's the end of 3. Now, we already covered 8 yesterday, so we're going to go on to 10 here, to November 10th. Sarah looked through the rifle scope at the target 4,000 yards away. She took another deep breath and slowly let. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear that noise. That's the backup battery kicking on because we're after we got flex time pricing here, and we went from the expensive time to the cheap time for electricity. So now it's charging back up the big UPS system. It should only last about 10 minutes. All right. Sarah looked through the rifle scope. She took another deep breath and slowly let half out as she snugged the butt of the Barrett M109 tighter against her shoulder and gently squeezed the trigger. The 25 millimeter round ignited and sent the 6.5 ounce slug out towards the target at 4,970 feet per second. Less than a second later, a 1-gallon milk jug vanished in a spray of water. Target down, Master Sergeant Russell called out. Ooh, I like this new barrel. There's so much less recoil. Benny smiled broadly. I can make one for your M107 also. Danny will need it more, Sarah answered. I can do for both. I can do one. Oh, never mind. Sorry, I was reading it wrong. I can do both before you head after the bikers in Canada. Sarah lined up on the next target and called out, next target in sight. Claire, next target, Master Sergeant Russell called out. Sending, Sarah replied, took a breath, let it out, and squeezed the trigger. Target down, Master Sergeant Russell called out. Just then, Mary Donaldson ran up and shouted, Cambridge just called. Their lookout spotted a dozen motorcycles and RVs approaching the city. ETA, Mary looked at her watch, 29 minutes. Master Sergeant Russell, Sarah called out, I gotta go. As she dropped the M901's M109B's magazine and cleared the chamber. Is your weapon clear? Yes, Sergeant. Yes, Master Sergeant. Weapon is clear. Then you're good to go. Mary, we put the M109B in its case, Sarah said as she held the weapon up. Of course, rifle. Private Johns, Master Sergeant Russell barked. Yes, Master Sergeant. Run and get a can of M792 high explosive incendiary trace for the Deputy Marshal. Right away, Master Sergeant. Private Johns replied and took off running. Sarah finished reloading the magazine with M793 target practice ammunition and placed them in her carrying bag. I'll meet you at the truck, Mary said, bubbling with excitement. See if Gunny wants to come along, Mary said. Sarah said to Mary as she put a couple magazines from her carry pouch into the soft-sided case with the M109B. She's getting ready. She said she'll be waiting on us. Mary giggled as she took off down the hill, running towards the camp office tent where Sarah's hang on. I think I forgot to change this here because she's no longer taking the Suburban down there. She's taking the F450, or Sarah's F450 was. Hold on, Mary, Sheriff called out. Master Sergeant Russell, we need a ride to my truck. Corporal Jennings, Master Sergeant Russell barked. Yes, Master Sergeant. Take my Humvee and drive the deputy to her vehicle. Yes, Master Sergeant, and don't forget the ammo, Private, and don't forget to get the ammo from Private Johns. Master Sergeant Russell growled. Yes, Master Sergeant. I won't, Master Sergeant. Then come right back. Yes, Master Sergeant, right back. A couple of minutes later, Sarah was at her new multicam painted F450 crew cab that Walt had bought her for a wedding present last year and had been hiding from her in one of the warehouses. It had matching painted camper shell on the short bed, and she was now loading her M109B and ammunition into the back of it when Kathy quickly rounded the corner and came up to abrupt halt. Master Sergeant Russell gave you a ride, didn't he? Kathy said more than asked as she put her weapon in the back of Sarah's truck. Nope, Corporal Jennings did. But the Master Sergeant told him to. Don't be mad, I asked for a ride. We're short of time and I want to make sure I want to be sure to get there to get set up before they get to the roadblock. So what's your plan? Sarah looked over at Kathy and saw the belt-fed machine gun. For you to use that? That's scary. It's an M5. It's an M205 special purpose weapon, belt fed 6.8 millimeter with targeting laser and night vision and infrared scope. Not that I'll need to turn that on. Just then, Mary came trotting over with a big backpack gun case and set what looked like a set of what looked like scuba tanks. What do you have in there? This is an AEA Precision Zeus 72 caliber PPC rifle. PCP rifle. Mary smiled back. A what? Sarah asked. It's a 72 caliber pre-charged pneumatic rifle, a super high-powered air rifle. It has a special suppressor, so when I keep the charge at 4,200 psi or less, the slug travels just under the speed of sound, so there's no sonic crack, and the suppressor totally muffles the rifle so you can't hear it at 15 feet. Crap, I should get one of those for stealth missions, Sarah said. Me too, added Kathy, and winked at Mary. Or you could just take me, Mary smiled slyly. Not without your father's permission, Lance Corporal, Kathy said. Sarah had Kathy drive as she changed into the special body armor that Benny and Wallina had made for her in the back seat. Once she had all the armor in place and was wearing her outer clothes again, Sarah had Mary. I forgot to put something in here. Had Mary connect the airline to the helmet. To the helmet. Then she had her hold a mirror while she put on the latex mask of herself over the skull. Hang on, make sure I don't get skull helmet. The skull helmet. Then she had Mary check to see if any of the skull was showing other than at the eyes. Then she put on a pair of mirrored amber sunglasses to hide the skull's lenses. Hang on here, I need to change this here to next. Next, she tested the speaker system to make sure it was working properly. So I need to add that. Test the VOI voice modulator and speaker system. Make sure they were working properly. When they got to the area where the roadblock was, Sarah shifted her black scarf up to cover the mouth and nose. Kathy pulled over to where Sarah usually parked and brought the truck to a halt. Please don't try to test out new armor. Walt would shoot me if anything happened to you, Kathy said as she climbed out of the, hang on here, F-450. Don't worry, I won't. Besides, the last several groups have had a bunch of refugees passing. The last several groups have been a bunch of refugees passing through. Hopefully we won't have any trouble with this group, Sarah replied, walking around to the back. Yeah, but they didn't have motorcycles escorting them. And so far, all the groups of motorcycles have been trouble causers, and gunfire has resulted every time, Kathy countered as she opened the camper shell. and dropped the tailgate. Hang on. I got to fix this here. 1, 2, 3, 4. As she opened the camper cell, dropped the tailgate, and grabbed her M250 SPW. Excuse me, Mary said as she slipped between them and opened her gun case. Whoa, Sarah breathed softly in awe. The normal length is 32 inches, but this one is 34. The suppressor is 24 inches with a dozen muzzle brake vents to disperse the exhaust. The scope has full night vision and infrared capacity like Kathy's, but has video recording. Hang on, I forgot that. It also has a shotgun boom mic and a PNY 1 terabyte flash memory card. Mary said proudly. Mary proudly explained. Sarah looked at Kathy. She is going to be going to sniper school, right? Of course, Kathy said flatly. We just need to find a spotter for her that the major will approve if she ever wants to go out and go outside the valley. I have no doubt that Dad will find me a very good spotter team. Hang on. Team, she said with a hint of annoyance. Sarah looked over at Kathy confused. I thought there were just 2 people on a sniper team. Before Kathy could answer, Mary added, that's right, Dad will add a 2-man or woman security detail to my team. No doubt, Kathy added. I'm going to set up in that tree. It has the most leaves for excellent concealment and is closer to the road and slightly behind where most of the groups have been stopped. There's no cover up there, Kathy stated. True, but no one has ever shot up into the trees, Mary countered. Yet. Kathy, hang on, I'm looking at the word, C-O-U-N. Hang on. Yet Kathy countered her counter. I don't plan on shooting anyone other than the drivers if it comes to that, Mary stated. And that would be after you 2 have their full attention. I would feel better if you had a ballistic suit on, Sarah said with, what's the word I want to put in here? What's the word? And all right, see, okay, yeah, sorry, I missed this. Okay, so Rebel Canners came in and David O came in. All right. Sarah said with a slight hint of N or VOIC. Sarah said with a slight hint of something in her voice. I do. Mary pulled down the collar of her turtleneck, showing the neck guard of a vest like the one Benny gave Walt. I'm covered neck to knees and elbows. Go, Kathy said with a bit of annoyance in her voice. Sarah laid out all of Yes, there we go. Sarah laid out all of her weapons for final check. She removed the magazines for the Glock G29 SFs, and uh, and cycled the round out of each of them. She replaced the round into the magazine, tapped the back of the magazine to seat the rounds, and placed it back in the pistol, then chambered the round. Then she removed the stainless steel Super Red Hawk 10 millimeter revolvers from their holsters, and then the cross draw revolver. This was a modern reproduction of a Colt 36 caliber Navy revolver chambered for 357 Magnum in double action that one of the women in town gave to her after her husband had a heart attack and died the week before. Sarah opened the cylinder of each one, dumped the shells, inspected them, and replaced the shells in the cylinder. Upgraded your revolvers, huh? Kathy noted. Yeah, Benny got the Super Red Hawks for me because I kept having a dream where I almost get shot because of the single action revolvers. And the widow in town mate gave me her husband's double action pistol. Sarah blew out a breath hard. I'm thinking about looking for some 8-shot Rugers to replace all 3 revolvers like Walt wants. Yeah, that would make Walt happier, Kathy said. I'd feel better to have an additional 6 shots without having to reload or carry another revolver. You have 30 rounds, ROUN. You have 30 rounds in your Glocks, but the barrels are too short for anything but close-up action, Sarah groused. Maybe after Wallina finds those extended barrels, then we see how they do at longer ranges. Sarah finished holstering her weapons and turned to face Kathy. In the meantime, scary enough, I think the scarf should be red and the belt buckle should be a skull. Maybe, Sarah smiled beneath the titanium skull mask. Let's go get set up at the road. All right. The roadblock had been modified several times since it was first erected. The northbound lane had the remains of 6 of the biker gang vehicles, including the frames and engine blocks of 2 semi trucks that Benny, let me change this here. And Wallina had ripped apart with the doom buggy of death. Several large boulders had been added on it as well as along both sides of the roadway for 100 yards. The southbound lane had a heavily modified remains of an old low bed trailer. It had a 24-inch hydraulic pump that powered the donkey axle under the gooseneck to move the trailer. The trailer also had boulders on it. It would sit blocking the southbound lane, and part of the northbound lane right behind the blockade. An operator could turn on the pump and move the valve forward and towards the back to back it up behind the northbound blockade and onto the shoulder to open the southbound lane. Northbound vehicles would then cross over into the southbound lane and pull into a slalom path that kept their speed very slow. In the middle of the slalom path was a second trailer set up the same way. Several times, troublemakers had tried to ram the blockade trailer. They added more weight to it. The last two times, neither one moved an inch. In addition to the northbound blockade, was a ramp that Benny could drive his dune buggy of death up onto, or he could sit behind the southbound trailer blockade and wait for him to open it and race around with the M134 Gal 17 minigun. There was a plank boardwalk on top of the guardrail for the southbound lane that they used to get around the blockade to talk to groups that came up with a white flag or other sign of non-aggression. Sarah and Kathy used that now to get in front of the blockade and wait for that. Sorry, there's a misspelling in there. There's a misspelling word and a misplaced word. So let me take this thing here, put it up there, put it in here, to wait for the oncoming group. There we go. When they got in front of the blockade, they noticed that a stack of bales of hay had been placed on the edge of the northbound lane between the blockade and the first boulder. They walked over to the pile and saw there was a 1-inch steel plate behind it. Shooter station, Kathy said. I'm not sure I would stay here if there was a vehicle trying to ram it. I would be running around the corner behind the blockade in case I would be running around the corner behind the blockade in that case. But for motorcycles, this is a good spot if you have two people there. I'll take the middle of the road. Somehow I knew you would, Kathy chuckled. I'll take the shooter station. A half mile away, Tommy Smith yelled, 8 motorcycles in front, 12 RVs, 5 pickups with cargo trailers, and 4 motorcycles in the rear. New people, hold your fire until you're given signal to fire. What's the signal? Someone shouted. Anyone shoots before me and I'll rip their arms off and beat them to death with them. Is that clear? Sarah called out. A couple of clear and got it came back. I said, is that clear? Sarah yelled. If not, go home. A lot more people were shouting clear and got it. Don't shoot at all. Do not shoot at all. Just put your guns down and watch. Nothing more. Is that clear? A half dozen clear and yes came back. They're at the quarter mile marker and slowing down, Tommy called out. Hang on, let me buzz back. Yeah, okay, yeah. I just wanted to verify something real quick. Sarah and Kathy looked at each other and wondered what was going on. They have stopped, Tommy added. One of the lead motorcycle riders is walking back to the first RV. Kathy, any idea what they're up to? Sarah asked. Not sure, but they sound like they know there's a roadblock here. Holy crap, Tommy shouted. They're on our ham radio frequency asking for permission to approach. Sarah shouted back to Tommy, 2 or 3 motorcycles only at first, and one of their leaders needs to be one of them. Well, at least they asked first, Sarah said, not too sure what was going on. Tommy, Kathy yelled. Eyes on the back roads. Oh, it's not. Hang on. Okay, wrong name here. Gordon is the one that runs the drones. Gordon, Kathy yelled, eyes open on the back roads and trails. This could be a trick. And you say I have a devious mind, Sarah snickered. I have some chatter on police bands. Anybody know what 1019 means? Someone else back by Tommy hollered. En route, Kathy shouted back. They're on the move. 2 motorcycles only, going real slow. Tommy called out. After a minute, 2 motorcycles came into view. Police motors, Kathy said. They better be cops, or they are all dead. She hissed. We'll see, Sarah said as she rolled her shoulders. The motorcycles were doing about 5 miles an hour as they approached. When Sarah's duster blew open, one of the motorcycles swerved a little. I think they've been listening to the stories of you on the ham radio, Kathy chuckled. You noticed that too, huh? Yep, I hope he doesn't do anything dumb or dumber, Sarah added. As they got close, Kathy stepped back about 6 paces to the pile of haze, and Sarah walked forward the same. The motorcycle started slowing about 150 feet from Sarah and were going so slow the last 25 feet that the riders had to put their feet down to maintain balance. They were about 8 feet in front of Sarah when they stopped. They turned off the engines, put the kickstands down. Names and departments, Sarah stated. Deputy Scott Deacon, San Diego County Sheriff's Department. Hang on, I want to change this here. He said, just loud enough for Sarah to hear. Officer John Thomas, Oceanside Police Department, he responded at the same volume. IDs, Sarah demanded as she stepped up to them. They handed her their department credentials and California driver's licenses. Once they had stopped, Kathy started working her way to the side of the road, road closer to them. From the moment they turned off their engines, she could read the decals of one of the motorcycles. When she could read the decals of one of the motorcycles, she snapped the M250 special purpose weapon to her shoulder and took a couple more steps. Then she shouted, "You, Oceanside, what's your name?" Sarah quickly drew her pistol and aimed it at Deputy Deacon. John Thomas turned towards her and froze when he saw the barrel of the M250 aimed at him. Thomas, what'd I do? Helmet off, Kathy commanded. John started to take his helmet off and stopped. Kat, is that you? Take it off, Kathy demanded. John took his helmet off and set it on the handlebars, on the handlebar that was pointed upward. Now what, he asked. Kathy stalked up to him. Sarah, take this. Kathy held out the M250 to her. As soon as Sarah took the weapon, Kathy's right hand flew and slapped John. The blow was so fast and unexpected that John started to fall off his motorcycle. Suddenly, Kathy grabbed his jacket, pulled him back up to her, and planted a kiss on his lips, thrusting her tongue deep into his mouth, making his eyes pop wide open. After what seemed like minutes, she broke the kiss. Why didn't you call? Kathy asked while struggling to keep from crying. I did. I left voice and text messages, John protested, and pulled out his phone. See? Sarah looked at the call log. I never got any of these. Why didn't you call? John asked. I was so worried about you. I did. I got messages that the circuits were busy or the cell phone was out of service area. The last time I tried, I got the number you're calling is not in service. I had Jenny try to contact you. She said she couldn't get through to you either. I thought you were dead. Kathy threw her arms around John and hugged him tightly as the tears flowed freely down her face. John returned the hug, and then they started kissing again. Sarah felt awkward watching them, so she directed her attention to Deputy Dinkin. So tell me about your group. He started as he was still staring at John and Kathy. He shook his head and turned his attention to Sarah. We have 16 families. A couple like John are single. All have law enforcement officers in them. 3 have more than one in them. Wait, every family is a law enforcement family? Yes, we have six agencies in our group. And everyone is looking for a job in law enforcement again? Those with that background, we have 2 nurses as well. Bring the group up, Sarah said quickly. I need to talk to them ASAP. Deputy Deacon got on his radio and called for the group to move up to the blockade. After he'd done that, Sarah asked him to move his motorcycle into the southbound lane up to the barricade. Then she turned her attention back to Kathy and John. Guys, she said with no reaction. Guys? Again, no reaction. Sarah repeated her attempts to get their attention. Then Mary walked up, shaking her head. Mary walked up, shaking her head. She walked up to Kathy and John and gave them a shove and walked off. When they nearly fell over, they came out of their trance. What was that for? Kathy asked. I'm not 18 yet. I shouldn't have to look at R-rated PDAs, Mary said as she headed towards Sarah's F-450. That's not R-rated, Kathy snapped back. Well, Sarah was hollering at you and you didn't respond. Mary quipped over her shoulder, and I'm not sure where your hands were and what they were doing, but I'm sure they didn't belong there and doing that in public. Kathy turned and looked at Sarah questionably. Sarah nodded several times. Oh, crap. Kathy said as she pulled away from John and straightened herself up, brushing her uniform down. John, can you park over by Deputy Deacon? Sarah asked. Because here comes your group. She pointed behind him. Sure thing. John started his motorcycle. We were that oblivious to you? Sarah snickered and waved him away. Were we that bad? Kathy asked, starting to blush. You have birth control? No, Kathy said tentatively. Then we need to get you some fast because you're going to need it. Then Sarah gave her a hug. I'll put the word out that he's spoken for and off limits, but come on, we have work to do. Sarah said as she handed the crap. What was the number of that gun again? 250. All right. Dash 250 back to CATHY. Kathy. And then she walked over to the center line and started waving the oncoming motorcycles and RVs over to the southbound lane. Once she had all the vehicles parked, Sarah went to each one and told the occupants to come to the front on the center line for a briefing. When she had everybody from the group assembled by the blockade, Sarah stood on the bales of hay and addressed them. It is my understanding that every family here is a law enforcement family with at least one law enforcement officer in it, and that some have two. Others have nurses. If you want to join our community, I'm going to need to know who is which and what agency you worked for and what other skills you have. From this information, we can offer you a couple of choices of employment. Most of the adults nodded their heads at this unexpected good news. The Adams County Sheriff's Department is the #1 agency hiring. My husband, Sheriff Walt Rogers, is currently handing the position back to his predecessor, Sheriff Randolph Cooper, who has agreed to take on the position because Walt is the new Chief Federal Marshal. Chris Davies is the Regional Special Agent in charge for Homeland Security. Those are the 3 hiring law enforcement agencies. In addition to this, she points to Kathy. In addition, comma, and he put the comma in there. This, she points to Kathy, is Master Gunnery Sergeant Kathy Dyer of the Marine Corps 4th Forcon. Their training facilities up the highway, and they are recruiting as well. Any questions before we get started? A middle-aged man stepped forward. And why are you doing this instead of one of the sheriffs or the SAC? Sarah started to open her mouth to answer, but Kathy jumped in. Perhaps I should introduce you. Kathy built up her introduction louder as she goes along. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I give you Deputy U.S. Federal Marshal Lightning Death. The group gasps. And Kathy continues a little quieter, a.k.a. Sarah Rogers. Cool, a preteen boy. Cool, yelled a preteen boy. Can I have your autograph? Robert, be quiet, his mother snapped. That's all right. I'll give him an autograph later, Sarah said quickly, then turned to the man who asked why she was doing the briefing. I didn't get your name. Ben Jeffries, former captain, California Highway Patrol. Captain Ben Jeffries, thank you for your years of service, Sarah said with a sincere voice. Are you one of the leaders? John is the real leader. Scott and I help him, he answered. Sarah shouted over her shoulder. Mayor Smith, how many deputies do you want to have assigned to Cambridge? 4 would be nice. 5 or 6 would be better, Ted answered. Captain Jeffries, what does your wife do? Lynn is a nurse. Can we have him? Ted asked. Before Sarah could respond, she heard the sound of Walt's Ranger pulling up. I'll recommend that to Walt, she told Ted and turned to the group. Please, who is the other nurse? A man raised his hand. Willie Rose. My wife is the shift lead at the 911 call center, and our eldest son, Tracy, graduated from the academy 9 months ago. Perfect. Have your family stand over here. She pointed to the northbound lane near her. Any other dispatchers? No one moved. Firefighters. A woman raised her hand. I drive pumper truck for San Diego County Fire Department, or I did. My husband Bob is a motor officer for Vista. Over here, she pointed to the northbound lane. Active duty or reserve military. 2 hands went up. She pointed to the female. Branch, rank, MOS. Ann Morris, Air Force, Staff Sergeant, Loadmaster, Reservist. And your husband? Steve Morris, motor officer, Oceanside. Over here, she again pointed to the northbound lane, and you pointed to the other raised hand. Al Cook, Air Force Master Sergeant, Security Forces, reservist, Deputy Sheriff, San Diego County. My wife is a CHP motor officer. Over here, she pointed again to the northbound lane. Sorry, I forgot to ask this earlier. Any federal law enforcement? 6 hands went up and 1 step forward. We're all Customs Border Protection. Over there, she pointed a little farther back down the northbound lane. Then she looked over at the remaining 4 families and heard the motorizer trailer start moving. One of them raised his hand and Sarah nodded to him. Phil Duncan, Oceanside motor officer. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. The next one spoke up. Jackson Kirk, Oceanside motor officer. Wife is a school teacher. Denny Bailey, Sergeant, Carlsbad PD. My girlfriend is a heavy equipment operator. The next one said. The last one spoke. Adam Trace, Carlsbad PD. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. Thank you. She said. She turned back to where Deputy Deacon was. Scott, what does your wife do? Janice ran a custom 3D printing service out of our home. Did you bring her printers with you? Benny shouted as he followed Walt, Randolph, and Chris, and both General Smythes out to the group. Yes, he answered cautiously. Benny pumped his fist. I take it you want them here in Cambridge, Benny, Sarah said. Only if we want to increase production. Babe, what did the county supervisors say? Randolph is once again sheriff. Jason is under sheriff, and Gary is lieutenant. Cool. Pointed to the family. Regional Custom Border Protection agents for you. She pointed them out. Then she looked at Randolph. Sheriff, I have a half a dozen more deputies for you, 2 of which have been requested stay in Cambridge, and a dispatcher to help in the office. Great, Randolph smiled. Sarah looked over at Kathy as she hopped down off the bale of hay. Master Gunny Sergeant Dyer, she said as she stepped in front of Kathy, tell me about the Marine Corps enforcement program. Is the civilian law enforcement Marine Corps. The agency is composed of civilian, non-military, federal. Kathy paused and looked unquestioningly at Sarah, such as federal. Sites are not sure what Sarah was going to do with this. All right. Sarah walked neck. Can I hire and swear in another deputy marshal? Only if you accept the. Behind the titanium, Sarah was chewing on her upper lip. Then she spoke. How about deputy chief in charge of special operations? Deal. Thank you. She sang and hugged Walt. When she released them, he put a deputy marshal's badge in her hand. Then she turned and saw Mary standing there with the open box that the wig and latex mask were stored in. Are you sure? Mary nodded. Sarah smiled back to the new arrivals, then turned and took her hat off and set it on Mary's head. Making Mary smile. Come on, you stupid thing. Damn it. Why won't it click right? There it clicks. Making Mary smile. Then she lowered the scarf and removed the wig and placed it on the styrofoam head. Next, she slipped the amber glasses off and the latex mask and put it on the other styrofoam head. There was some murmuring behind behind her when the back of the skull mask became visible. She took her hat back, put it on. Hang on a second here. I got to check something. I had to check on Oliver. Wasn't sure what sounds were unusual. There was some murmuring. We took back to that. Sarah took the hat and put it back on. Mary cleared her throat. Gloves. Sarah slipped the thin black leather gloves off that were covering the titanium skeleton gloves and handed them to Mary. Pucker their butts, Mary said with a wicked smile. Sarah took 2 steps back, rolled her shoulders, then she turned around and faced the new group. She raised her head high with a tilt to the left and let rip a cackling laugh that made the jaw of the mask shatter. Gasps and screams and yelps, which erupted from most of the group, were offset by a couple of cool and awesome yells by several boys. Sarah then strutted over to John Thomas, who was a bit wide-eyed and nervous. Hang on, he changed this to stopping in front of him. She said, "Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Insert your name after I." She gave him the oath of office for a U.S. federal U.S. federal marshals. She held out her hand. John looked nervously, and which John took nervously. Sorry, I'm reading backwards. Which John nervously took and shook his hand. "Welcome to the U.S. federal marshals. Come with me." She gave John's hand a slight tug before releasing it to get him to follow her. Sarah walked over to Kathy. "Master Gunner Sergeant Dyer, I am assigning Deputy Federal Marshal Thomas to Camp Tun Tavern as a representative for the Marine Corps Law Enforcement program. Can you find a place to stay in Indian Valley?" Kathy came to attention. "Yes, Lightning Death, I most certainly can." She then took John's hand and shook it. "Welcome to Camp Tun Tavern." She smiled, almost giggling. "Good." Sarah waited for him to hug. When they didn't, they just held the handshake. Sarah let out a sigh of exasperation. Her left hand clamped quickly down on John's shoulder. Her left foot swept forward, catching him behind his right knee, driving it gently to the road. "You traveled all this way to find her," Sarah leaned in her best creepy voice finished with. "Ask her before she embarrasses you and asks you first, or someone else jumps in and asks her." John quickly said, "Kat, will you marry me?" Kathy dropped to her knee, yes, and kissed John passionately. While they were kissing, Sarah turned to Walt. "Do you think Matt will do me a big favor?" Walt chuckled and smiled broadly. "I'm very sure he will." "Wait, what?" Kathy stammered as she broke hers and John's kiss. "I'm going to ask Matt to marry you two." Sarah smiled. "Nothing is too good for my big sister." Sarah stood up. Kathy stood up quickly and faced Sarah. "Get rid of it." Kathy cocked the skull face. "I'm not kissing it." Sarah stiffened in realization. "Mary," she called out and started to unlatch the titanium mask. Mary ran over and Sarah plopped her hat on Mary's head again. Then she lifted the helmet off. Hang on. As she disconnected the airline. So come on, what is wrong with the double click on this thing? It's not probably one of the updates from Microsoft that I've been having to delete all the time to keep forcing it back again. As Mary disconnected the airline, then she lifted the helmet off and handed it to Mary, and took her hat back. As soon as Sarah lowered her hand, Kathy shot in and cradled Sarah's face with her hands and kissed her full on the lips. "Thank you," she said, as soon as she broke the kiss. Then she wrapped her arms around her and hugged Sarah tightly. "I never had a sister." Sarah hugged her back even harder. Kathy asked Mary to be her maid of honor and Sarah to be her matron of honor. Jane was miffed and grumpy because she had twisted her ankle the day before and was on crutches, so she couldn't be in the wedding party. Kathy had also asked John's partner's wife. Hang on, I need to switch things around here. I noticed this before and I forgot to switch it before. Okay. This thing here. John asked his Oceanside PD partner, Steve Morris, to be his best man, and fellow motor officers Phil Duncan and Jackson Kurt to be groomsmen. Kathy then asked need to change it up, and ask Steve's wife, Ann Morris, to be the third bridesmaid. John and Kathy had agreed Kathy and John agreed for him and the groomsmen to wear their Oceanside dress uniforms, and for Kathy and Mary to wear their dress marine dress uniforms. Anne wore a yellow dress, and Kathy had put her foot down, demanding that Sarah dress in full lightning death regalia. Sarah could not dissuade her, even with John and Walt's help. Everyone at the wedding party was in position at the back of the grand hall, with the exception of Kathy and Joseph Donaldson, who she asked to give her away. When the vice president, Matt Mitchell, entered the grand hallway, he went straight to his designated spot. Hang on a second. What do you want, Oliver? I'm hungry again. You're hungry again? Well, give me a couple of minutes, and I'll come get you some cereal, okay? Okay. All right. Yeah, he's in kindergarten, so he has kindergartens are half days, so he doesn't go until 12 o'clock. Next year, he goes with his brothers in the morning. I went to his designated spot by the fireplace opposite the one that divides the grand hall from the dining room. Senator Karen Mitchell with Cindy and Reba Trickle on either side sat in the second row. Second, 4 Navy SEALs and 4 Marines in the back row. Walt stepped in front of Matt, facing the audience. Friends, families, and guests. The bride has requested a certain member of the wedding party to wear a specific outfit. For those who have not seen it before, please, hang on, I want to emphasize that. Please exercise decorum and restraint. This is the bride's choice for her matron of honor. It is the bride's choice that her matron of honor be Lightning Death, not Sarah, Lightning Death. So don't freak out when you see her. With that, Walt nodded to his grandmother Martha, who was seated at the piano. As Walt stepped away, Martha began playing Eagle's Serenade. Steve Morris escorted Mary Donaldson up the aisle, and when they got to the front, where they were supposed to part, he took her hand, bowed, and kissed it. Mary turned 3 shades of red as she stepped back to her assigned spot. Next, Phil Duncan escorted Sarah, Lightning Death, up the aisle. As they started, she whispered, "You don't have to kiss my hand." Phil whispered back, "Steve bet me $100 that I wouldn't copy him." Sarah muttered, "Boys." When they got to the front where they're supposed to part, he also took her hand, bowed, and kissed it. Kurt Jackson then escorted Ann Morris up the aisle and copied the others. Then Martha changed the song to Wagner's Bridal Chorus. After a few seconds, Kathy and Joseph came into view and up the aisle. Both were wearing their Marine Corps dress blues. Okay. Matt pronounced John and Kathy husband and wife, and after they kissed, she turned John and herself to face Matt. "Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for marrying us." John's jaw just about became dislocated from the shock of who just married them. Matt spoke. "How could I decline being asked to do a special favor for Lightning Death?" He glanced over at Sarah and cleared his throat. "You really demanded her to come in full gear?" he asked, looking back at Kathy. Looking back at Kathy. "The entire time I've known her, she has been Lightning Death. It would not feel right to have her in a dress." Matt turned them around to face the guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I present John and Kathy, happy husband and wife." The guests applied. Martha started to play Mendelssohn's Wedding March when Matt said "stop" in a loud voice. The reason I was hang on, let me shorten this up. There we go. The reason I was a tad late was I was instructed to wait for a courier to pass on to me a special gift for the bride. Captain Scott Byers, please bring the case forward. As Scott, also in his dress blues, carried a briefcase forward, Matt said, "General Donaldson, please join me here." Scott turned to his left Scott turned to his left when he got to the wedding party and proceeded past the bridesmaid, then walked around behind them and up to Matt. He brought the briefcase up and opened it in a way that prevented Kathy from seeing into it. Joseph looked into the case and smiled. He reached in and took out a framed letter and held it up to read it. "Attention on deck," Scott called out. The Marines and SEALs sprang to attention, followed immediately by the Idaho Rangers venture crew, Walt, Sarah, Randolph, and his deputies. The groomsmen and all who served in the military. A loud cough from Scott brought everyone else to their feet. Joseph spoke. Attention to orders. From the office of the President of the United States of America. Hear ye, let it be known to all. Whereas, one, Kathy Dyer, through exemplary actions and service in the United States Marine Corps, rose to the rank of Master Gunnery Sergeant in an expedited time. Whereas, during her service, she performed above and beyond the call of duty combat, resulting in her receiving the Congressional Medal of Honor. Whereas, after her retirement from the United States Marine Corps, she rose to help others in a time of disaster and need, volunteered to serve as a deputy sheriff for Adams County, Idaho, and was instrumental in stopping instrumental in stopping several large gangs of marauders, murderers, and rapists, and helping in aiding of refugees. Whereas, when called upon by her government, she returned to duty as Master Gunnery Sergeant in the United States Marine Corps without hesitation or reservation, and has since that time upheld and glorified the ideals and principles of the United States Marine Corps and the United States of America. Be it known now that I, Ronald William Lepetamain, President of the United States of America, hereby order that Master Gunnery Sergeant Kathy Dyer be promoted to the rank of Sergeant Major. And salute, Captain Harris shouted. Joseph handed the frame to John and reached back into the case and took out 2 Sergeant Major rank insignia. He reached out and pinned one over each of the Master Gunnery Sergeant insignias on her uniform. Then he stepped back and saluted her. Sergeant Major. When Joseph lowered his salute, Sammy shouted, 2, and everyone ended their salute. Kathy was shaking as tears began to flow down her cheeks. Permission to haul off and kiss the general. Joseph nodded. Permission granted. All right. I hope everybody enjoyed the wedding, but it's not over yet. There's more to come. Or as what's his name says, and that's not all. All right. After everyone had eaten and was milling around talking and congratulating John and Kathy when Rebecca Michaels, Walt's other grandmother, called for wedding pictures. After group and couple photos had been taken, Rebecca called for the throwing of the garter and bouquet. John knelt beside Kathy and untied the shoelaces on her right foot, and she lifted up her right foot. And as she lifted it up, he slipped the shoe off and set it down. Kathy set her sock-covered foot on John's thigh near the knee. John then began to slowly hike up Kathy's pant leg. When the pant leg got above the sock and some skin showed, John accidentally dropped the pant leg and started over. The second time he dropped the pant leg, she smiled. Drop it again, and I'm signing you up for tear gas training. John chuckled and quickly removed the garter and put her shoe back on and tied the shoelaces. Then he stood up, took a stance, hooked the garter on his left thumb, and pulled to his right. Whoa, this has some power to it. He aimed up. Windage and elevation, boys. This one's flying, and he let it go. William Hawks sat off to the side of the area that had been cleared for dancing and the throwing of the garter and bouquet. He hadn't planned on making a grab for it. He was just looking at the cute maid of honor sitting on the other side of the cleared area. William looked away from her just as John launched the garter. He noticed that it was going to hit one of the decorations hanging from the ceiling in front of him, and he vaulted from his chair with his Henry rifle in his left hand, took 3 fast big steps, snagged the garter as it fell short with his right hand, and then slid the rest of the way across the floor on the balls of his cowboy boots and came to a rest in the chair next to Mary. He smiled at her and said, "Pardon the intruding, pretty lady." Mary giggled softly. "Where'd it go?" It got caught, boys. Ladies, you're up, John said. As the ladies moved in position, the grumbling boys cleared out. Sarah got Brian and Sally to come over to her by Mary and William. "Get ready to catch it, Sally," Sarah said softly. "All right, get ready," Kathy said as she faced away from them, bent over to throw the bouquet. As she brought her arms up in a throw, her left foot up into the air as she lost her balance, in quotes, and started to fall. John quickly grabbed her, stopped her throwing, but her aim was way off, in quotes again. Let's hang on a minute. I got to fix that quote. There we go. Was way off, and the bouquet went not towards the ladies lined up to catch it, but towards Mary. Mary deflected it at the last second, and it landed in Sally's hands. "Are you all right, Kathy?" Sarah shouted in concern. "Yeah," Kathy answered. "These patent leather shoes don't have any grip on a well-waxed floor." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief that Kathy was okay. Brian reached over to Sally and hugged her. Sarah quickly told him to stay there as she ran off to get Matt. She returned with Matt, Michael and Jenna Rogers, David Rogers and Nikki Thomas, Mark and Mary Rogers, and Eric and Diane Thomas. "Brian, Sally, here's your marriage license. David, Nikki, here's your license," she said. She turned to the Thomases. "They've waited long enough. Let them get married now. Otherwise, they might go off and do it when you're not around, and you'll both regret it." She lowered her eyes and voice. "Even if they do it again when you're there." Diane immediately got Sarah's point. "You're right. They should get married." "I'm glad you agreed." Sarah pulled out 2 garters from her shirt pocket and handed one to Nikki, one to Sally. "Now, here's my plan. Mary and William sat listening to Sarah talk with her extended family and smiled. When the new then the new wedding party was lined up and was ready, Sarah called out for everyone to come to that side of the grand hall again. Walt walked up to her and asked what was going on. Walt smiled and said for him to take his place, said for him to take the best man's spot. Then she addressed the gathering. "Friends and family, we are having a second wedding. Back in March, the evening of Michael and Jenna's wedding, Brian and Sally got engaged. Now they are getting married too." She then took the spot next to the bride. Matt performed a simple ceremony and presented as Mr. and Miss, presented them as Mr. and Mrs. Thomas. Then Sarah said, "Hang tight," and hesitated as William carried a chair over to her. "Have him slyly hit the orange ball with the garter, please," William whispered as he handed Sarah the chair. William returned to stand next to Mary, who was holding his Henry rifle. As Sarah set the chair in front of Sally, Sally put her left foot on the chair and lifted up the dress, and Brian gently removed the garter and stood back up. Go deep. And he stood back up and said, "Go deep." As the single men and boys moved back, Brian elevated a little more and lined up with the orange crepe paper ball to let the garter fly. It barely hit it, but it was enough to drop it right where William could be first to it. William carried it back to Mary and handed it to her. She then stretched it open and slid it on his right arm. Several people said, "Ah," including Sally. Then Mary gave William a quick kiss and started to sit and went back in for a longer kiss. William was able to kiss her back this time. When she broke the kiss, they both said, "Wow," and giggled. Then Sally then got ready to toss the bouquets. Ladies and girls, you ready to catch the bouquet? Yes, they all yelled. "Well, sorry, you're going to have to wait." Because she tossed the bouquet to Nikki. It's Nikki's turn to get married. She and Nikki switched spots. So did Brian and Dave. By the way, Sally and Nikki were standing about a foot apart when Brian and Davy, who were kneeling, proposed. She turned around and stepped back to her position. After Matt pronounced David and Nikki husband and wife, Sarah moved the chair back in place. Nikki put her foot on it, and David slipped the shoe off and removed the garter. He put her shoe back on, stood up, garter in hand. David started to pull it back on the garter, then stopped, walked 10 steps to his left. "I'm not going to hit those decorations," he chuckled, and then pulled back and David started to pull back on the garter, stopped, walked 10 steps left. "I'm not going to hit those decorations," he chuckled, pulled back on and said, "Oh, Moosehead, catch Moose." And slipped the garter off his thumb instead of releasing the grip with the other hand. Everyone looked to the moose, and all the single guys went scrambling that way. Then he tossed the garter towards William, and it landed about 6 feet in front of him, but no one saw it. William shouted as he walked to it, "Guys, it's over here." Everyone froze as he slowly walked up to it, picked it up, turned and walked back to Mary and handed it to her. She then stretched it open, slid it over. Hang on. It was right arm before, so it's going to be his left arm. And left arm, and then gave him another kiss. Nikki went to the same spot that David was at, looking around. "Can someone please hand me one of those tabletop arrangements? They look like they might weigh the same as the bouquet. I want to do a test throw." "You better get your shoes and socks off," William whispered to Mary. Stan picked up one and carried it to Nikki. Nikki. "Thank you, Grandpa," she said. Then she turned around, did a quick double check over her shoulder, bent, and gave it a hefty toss. It went almost to the dining room. "All right, let's do this." "Wait," one of the women yelled. "If you're just going to make it easy for Mary to catch it, just hand it to her." "No," Mary shouted. "If I get it, it's because I caught it fairly." Mary walked over to Nikki, got in a runner stance. "On three," she said. Nikki turned around, and when William shouted, "Wait, get those little girls out of there. No one under 16 should try for the bouquet. You will get run over." Oh. "Vanessa Kitty is in the house." "You will get run over." Everyone under 16 was ushered well away from the area. Mary breathed breathed deeply and huffed out air. You ready? Nikki asked. Mary replied loudly, Marine Corps! And several of the Marines responded, Hardcore! And several ladies withdrew from the group. 1, 2, 3. And Nikki said as she threw the bouquet with all her might. At that, Mary yelled, as she pumped her legs as hard as she could. Several others turned tail and got out of the area. Mary had her head cocked to her left so she could keep an eye on the bouquet as she was a half a step ahead as it flew over the first 2 decoration wires. But its angle brought it to clip the 3rd wire and stop. Mary saw that and started backpedaling hard. She turned and raced back to where the bouquet was falling and scooped it up just before it hit the floor. Cheers and applause erupted as she caught it, and the Marines yelled, "Hoorah!" Mary stopped for a couple seconds to catch her breath. William walked over to the chair at the head of the room with Mary's shoes and socks. One of the single ladies came up to Mary and said, "May I ask why it was so important for you to get it?" So I can get married today, Mary answered softly. Then, shh. When lady started to squeal, William was waiting. He had put her left shoe on the chair and was holding the sock. She took hold of the back of the chair to brace herself while he put the sock on her foot and then the shoe. Once the shoe was on, William tied the laces. Once the shoe was on, William tied the laces. Then she picked up her right foot and held it up in the air, expecting him to slip on a sock, but he straightened her leg and set her heel on the edge of the chair closest to him. Then began to slide her pant leg up. Mary said, William said, looked in her eyes. Do I have to say, trust me? Mary smiled and said, no. Then he proceeded to move the pant leg up past her knee to the calf. Then William shouted, Kathy. When Kathy started walking over, he reached into his shirt and pulled out the garter she had worn and showed it to everyone, and then slipped it on Mary's leg. Just so you know what's happening with it. Mary stopped, tilted her head a little, and said, "Aw." Then William began to kiss Mary's leg from the pant down. On the second kiss, Mary moaned with pleasure. "Oh, William, this is another reason I love you." And moaned more as he continued down her leg. Nikki ribbed David and said louder than she intended, "Pay attention." "You too, Brian," Sally added, and giggles erupted across the room. When he got near the toes, Mary thought William was going to stop, but he continued on and kissed each toe. "Wow," Janet said. "He even kisses her toes," and gave Michael a punch in the arm. "I would fight every man here just to drink her bathwater," William proclaimed. "Sarah," Mary said loudly, "please tell me you have a blank marriage license form." William slipped Mary's sock on her foot. Joseph Donald started to move towards marrying William, but his wife Linda stopped him and shushed him. "I'm sorry I don't," Sarah said. William put her foot into the shoe and began to do up the laces. "Mr. Vice President," Mary said, "do we really need to have a license to get married?" "Well, technically it can be filled out afterwards, but aren't you still 17? You need your parents' permission first." "Right," Mary said, and put her foot on the floor, then straightened her uniform and said, "Shall we?" William stood up, held his left arm out, and Mary slid slid hers around his, and they marched deliberately towards her parents, coming to a halt in front of them. William spoke with steadfastness in his voice. General Donaldson, Mrs. Donaldson, I request in all humility that you would please give consent to your daughter and I to get married today. No, Joseph said flatly. Unless, Linda added quickly, you can meet these conditions. 1, you get a marriage license here in less than 30 minutes. Are you 18? No, ma'am. I turned 18 in January. Are your parents here tonight? No, ma'am. 2, you have to get them here and have them agree to the marriage and sign the license. 3, the license must be signed and notarized in 30 minutes. 4, you must have a full-time job. 5, fail to complete any of the first 4 and you will wait a full year to get married. Deal? Deal, William said and held his hand out to Linda. She shook it and then offered to Joseph. He looked at his wife. Are you sure about this? Yes, if he can do it, then they should get married. Hang on, I forgot. There's a sentence missing here. Oh, no, I skipped over. Okay, and he shook William's hand. William called out, Sarah, already on it. Danny, radio the mine, get his family down here in 15 minutes. Randolph, get a deputy over to the county clerk and bring him here. Bring him and the license book here. Code 3. Pop, get your notary stuff. I need a table over here, clean and dry. Mary, yes. Maid of honor, Jane. Somebody help Jane over here and get a chair for her to sit on until we start. Back to Mary, bridesmaid. Kathy and Lightning, Death in full outfit. Sarah then looked at William. Best man and groomsmen. Danny, Tommy, and Walt, William said quickly. Walt spoke up. I'll get Danny to add them to the list. Yes, Mary said excitedly. We're getting married. He still needs a job, Linda said. William, how would you like a job as a deputy U.S. federal marshal? Sarah asked. No, Samley said, stepping up. He's already committed to becoming an Idaho Ranger, right? I gave my word to Sammy. That's cool, Sarah said as she left the room quickly. Sammy looked William in the eyes. Hold up your right hand and repeat after me. I, pause. You solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the state of Idaho against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. That I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office I'm about to enter into. So help me God. Congratulations, Ranger Hawks. Here's your badge and first week's pay and signing bonus. She gave him a Ranger badge and 2 gold ingots. And then his rig with his Henry Axe 410 shotgun. And your axe. You have to be armed at all times when in uniform and out in public. This counts as both. If you want to keep wearing the garters, get them dyed red. Okay, what else? Don Parker and Samuel Smith walked up. Since you're already wearing a blue bib cavalry shirt, blue bib front cavalry shirt, you just need a new medium brown duster, white gloves, and red bandana. They tied and put the bandana on him and pinned the badge on while he buckled his belt and holster rig. Then they helped him on with his new duster. When you're not wearing your gloves, they'll be tucked in the front of your rig belt. And your new hat, Arthur Roberts said as he ran back into the grand hall and popped the lid of the box he was carrying. We even had it done up in your bull rider style for when you turned 18, but now it's better. They took out the new medium brown hat and that matched the duster and placed it on his head. Put his old one in the box. You can get the old one cleaned and dyed next time you're in town. Wow, guys, it's really great. How do I look? He asked Mary. Ugh. As he turned around. Very hot and sexy. Very hot and sexy, Mary said with a lustful tone. Mary, Linda exclaimed. Not in public. Mary stiffened up. Randolph walked up. Deputy Wayne is driving the county clerk up here now. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Yes, Mary shouted as she started bouncing around. William reached out, took Mary's shoulders, turned around. Maureen, attention. She snapped to attention. Mary, we have to act appropriate. We have to act properly. I want to jump and yell too, but we're in uniform and wearing the badge of our office. He tapped the emblem on her collar. After we are married and changed into casual clothes, then we can act a little wild. He turned her around to face her father. Mary stiffened and saluted. I beg the general's forgiveness for my inappropriate behavior while wearing my uniform. All right, Oliver's back. I got to go get him something to eat. So I'll be back in a minute. And so, yeah, don't go away. All right. Okay. Let's get on with it here. Repeating the last sentence, Mary stiffened and saluted. I beg the general's forgiveness for my inappropriate behavior while wearing my Marine uniform. Joseph reached out and scooped his daughter into his arms and hugged her tightly. When did you grow up so much? Danny stepped around in front of them. Everybody's on their way from the mine, and they'll be here in 8 minutes. Sarah walked up carrying her skull helmet. Hang on, yeah, I need to expand it here. Walked up in her all BLAC black, all black gun SLING gunslinger clothes CLO clothes and carrying her hang on titanium skull helmet, dragging a chair. I've got to get better at doing this myself, or Walina needs to make it more user friendly. You want me wearing this, and you need to help me get it on. Mary chuckled. Of course. Are the fuel tanks filled? Fresh tanks all around. Cool. Fuel tanks? Hang on, I want to do this right. Fuel tanks? Linda and Joseph asked. You'll see. Well, Walina did a lot of special effects for movie studios. After she got out of the Corps, Mary finished hooking up the airline to the skull helmet. Are the wrist jets hooked up? Good to go, Sarah answered. All right, then, give it a test, Mary said. Sarah stood up, stepped back from them. She slightly raised her hand, and small green flames appeared around the hands and flickered up around the skull mask. Then Sarah snapped her arms out straight, and the flames burst forth like a raging entity. As she tilted her head back and a little to the side, and gave out a cackling laugh. Holy mother of Elizabeth exclaimed as she jumped back into her husband's arms, who straightened up. Sarah clapped the hands in front of her, and the flames went out. You need flames coming out around your boots, William said. Oh, Sarah and Mary said together, of course. You let her know tomorrow, Mary said. I'm going to be busy. Hang on, I got to do this right. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to be busy. Oh, shoot. What? Everyone asked. Mary spun around to her dad, came to attention. Sir, I need a 3-day leave. Don't worry about it. I'll cut it in the morning. So now we wait, William said, looking at his watch. Oh, Dad, Mary suddenly said. A bride is supposed to wear her veil when she but I'm in uniform. Should I wear my cover? I noticed that Kathy didn't. I wanted to be sure. Technically, I would say no because we're indoors. However, if you were to wear it, you would remove it when you say your vows and keep it off after that. I'll go without, she said. And they waited nervously. When William Hawk's family finally family arrived, things got a little bit touchy for a few minutes. His parents rushed over to him, and his mother started chattering away. Oh, so who is the girl that you've been hiding from us? Where is she? I'm dying to meet her. Is she a good family? Are her parents respectable? Mom, William said to her louder than he meant to. I love you, but will you please stop with the 60 question? Shh. William held up his hand to quiet his mother. She's a beautiful woman, funny, sensitive, and caring. She's a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps, and I love her so much. Please, no commentary. Please. Hang on, I want to accent that last one. There we go. What is that? Good grandpa. Hungry. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I missed the comments. Okay, his mother said, obviously wanting to ask a bunch of questions. All right, now, Mom, Dad, this is Mary Bethany Donaldson. Mary, this is my father, Patrick Cox, and my mother, Pauline. It's so nice to meet you, Mary said, and held out her hand to Patrick and then to the wide-eyed Pauline. This is my father, General Joseph Donaldson, and my mother, Linda, Mary said proudly. Pauline got even, got, hang on here. Yeah, I forgot to put this in here. Pauline got even more wide-eyed and gulped. General, she gulped again. Please forgive my nervous chatter earlier. Water under the bridge, gone and forgotten, Joseph said. Then Deputy Gary Wayne came in with the county clerk. Sarah pointed them where to go. William cleared his throat. Mom, Dad, we need to get the license. We need to get the license signed and notarized. We're on the clock, so to speak. Okay, where do I sign? Pauline giggled nervously as William guided her and his father to the table where the county clerk had laid out the license book. Patrick and Pauline signed where the clerk told them to. Then Joseph and Linda signed. Then Mary and William signed. Mark pulled out his notary and stamped and notarized the parents' signatures. William and Mary hurried in front of Matt. Then William and Mary hurried to stand in front of Matt. Period. Period dash. When she glanced over her father, looking at him, sad, she said, "Wait." Mary shouted and ran to her father, grabbed his hand, and dragged him to the back of the grand hall. "We need music." Mary and Joseph stood still while Martha hurried to the piano and played Wagner's bridal chorus. Then Joseph escorted his eldest twin daughter down the aisle. Then, with a simple ceremony and off-the-cuff vows that were quite heartfelt, Walt declaring again he would fight every man here just to drink her bathwater. Walt pronounced them husband and wife. Then Matt signed the license. Then Marty Pratt and Kathy signed as witnesses. William and Mary looked at their watches. 6 minutes to spare. They looked at each other and sighed and hugged. "Hey, you two, we need to do the garter and banquet," somebody yelled. They laughed and got up and shot the garter and tossed the bouquet. The single adults were miffed because some younger teenagers caught them. A boy named Jake Donaldson who jumped off a chair and grabbed the garter, and a girl snake as the bouquet was coming down. After the daddy-daughter dance, Sarah came up to Mary and William and told Mary that her other clothes were now in Walt's office, and Walt had pulled had put a plaid shirt in there that William could use, so he was out of uniform. It was while they were changing they realized they didn't have a place to stay as a married couple. They quickly changed and went looking for her father. They found him talking to William and Eric Thomas. They found him talking to Walt and Eric Thomas. As they closed in on the three of them, put a comma in here. As they closed in on them, the three of them started chuckling. "So you just realized you don't have a place to sleep tonight," Joseph said as they hurried up to him. "Oh, there are several places we can stay. But none with the privacy we wanted," William said. "We were hoping that there might be a small travel trailer around that's not being used that we could borrow until we get something more permanent." It's going to take a couple of weeks for anything comes available with the new base housing, Joseph said. I don't want to take base housing from anybody transferring in. They've had a tough time already. I was thinking we get Pappy and Nana we could talk to Pappy and Nana, see if we could clean out one of the bedrooms they're using for storage. But in the meantime, we would need a trailer to stay in, Mary said, or a place to put a tent like a nice warm barn, William said, or the underground gun range. We could use one of the air mattresses, Mary said. Nope. Kathy and John are using it for a while, Joseph replied. Well, what about her loft, Mary asked. Or you could use our travel trailer that's stored in one of the barns here, Eric suggested. You could use it for a week while you're getting something figured out. Thank you, Mr. Thomas, William said. But what about David and Nikki or Brian and Sally? Nikki's moving in with David and Brian in with Sally, Eric said. Good. We don't want to put anybody out, Mary said. Boom. Okay, we made it to chapter 4, which is where I wanted to. Did it in just under 2 hours. Now let me get some water here. So chapter 4 begins. It's called Snowfall. It's November 11th, which is the next day. And the subtitle is Winter Storms. And things are going to get really weird in the next chapter. Actually, not so much in chapter 4, but there's, if you look on the left over here, there's a bunch of sub-chapters for it. So, yeah, there are a bunch there, and yeah, some of them get really, it gets, nature makes, or life makes a left-hand turn, and things go weird for everybody. So that'll be tomorrow, unless, hang on, let me check something here. So we're starting at 2:30. This one is page 2. That's only 4 pages for the first one. So that's that one starts on 35. That one's a long one. That's 30 pages. So that's 30 pages. That's 4 pages. I'm going to go ahead and read the first sub one here for the 11th, and we'll cut it off after the 11th. So I was planning on doing at least 3 days to read this chapter. So let's go ahead with this one here. November 11th, 2037, the winter storms. The morning of Veterans Day came with the first snowfall of the season. As it started, it was a light snow, but it was slowly getting heavier with each hour. As Walt walked around the house, he noticed that the snow, hang on. Walt walked around the house. He noticed that the snow, as it came down, at first glance looked white. Okay. But when you looked at it more closely, it had a grayish tint to it. He bent down and scooped a little up and rubbed his feet and rubbed. Hang on, I want to change this around. He scooped a little up and rubbed his thumb and fingers together. What's up, babe? Sarah asked as she walked over to him. The inch of snow crunching softly under her boots. Ash-contaminated snow. Walt sighed as he looked at her. Did I say how happy I am that you're done with sniper training? Several times last night, Sarah smiled thinking about last night. So, did you know this was going to happen? I figured this was bound to happen with the amount of volcanoes that erupted. I, I, I held out a small hope that the rains would have washed most of the ash from the air before we got snow, but that didn't happen. Maybe it did, but not as much as you hoped for, Sarah tried to reassure him. And anyways, we came off much better than we would have if the winds weren't as strong as they were. Shoot, look how fast the clouds are going now. Yeah, Walt said uneasily, looking up at them. This ash is from Russia. How so? Well, with the reports of the Siberian traps erupting in an area over 2,000 miles long and 7 miles wide, even though it's a flow of snow, it's still putting off a lot of ash, especially if there is rain or snow falling on it. Following the jet stream from there to the Aleutians and down to Vancouver Island and east to us, it's a wonder we haven't gotten more ash. Why do you think that is? Personally, I think it has to do with the Cascadian subduction zone. With all of the steam and hot air updrafts, any Russian ash would have that made it here was lifted up and over us, along with most of the ash from the Cascadia. But with the subduction zone closing up, we are not getting those updrafts on the coast, so the current is not getting pushed higher. So I feel that we won't be getting the warm air we have been enjoying from the zone. Poop. I think you're right, Sarah groused and then asked, couple of questions. Could this ash be from the volcanoes in the Aleutian Islands? What about the geothermal? The geothermal ground temperature. If the magma got moved around a bunch by the asteroid, wouldn't it create heat? And if the moon is closer now, won't its gravitational pull keep the magma keep the magma moving a little more than it used to? That should create more geothermal heat. So wouldn't that work its way to the surface and offset the cold front and melt the snow quicker? It might, but I don't recall any reports on the Aleutian Island volcanoes doing much more than just leaking lava slowly. That's odd, don't you think? What do you mean? With all the volcanic activity around the world, that the Aleutian Islands, which usually have some activity, would suddenly become quiet. You're right. We'll have to check. As far as geothermal in some areas where the crust is thinner, or where the thermal vents or veins, fractures, I forget the word, allows magma to rise near the surface, then yes, it would cause other areas where the crust is thin. Sorry, I forget the word. Allows the magma to rise to the surface, and yes, it could. But other areas where the crust is thicker, it won't. At least not as warm. Sarah, Tommy yelled as he ran from the house that Walt had given to him. Something's wrong with Grandma. She needs a doctor. Go, I'll call him, and the EMTs. Walt said as he gently gave Sarah a push towards her parents' house. Then he pulled out his cell phone and activated the Go Tenant app and pushed the icon for the doctor. as he started jogging behind Sarah. What do you want?
I get that. I need find a man.
Go get it and bring it here. Jogging behind Sarah. When Dr. Porter answered, Walt said, Don, something is wrong with Ellen Hayes at the Ahern's house. I'm heading there now. I'll call the Clydestons and have them and get them to pick you up. Bye. He pushed the icon for the Clydestons, the EMT ambulance couple. When they answered, he said, I already called Doc. Pick him up and pick him up and get down here to the Ahern's house. Something is wrong with Helen Hayes. There you go. There's your vitamins. Hey, hang on. You'll put that back. Done with Helen Hayes. Bye. Hang on, let me put some more dots in there. Bye. He'd ordered 50 of the GoTana modules in the final weeks before the leak about the asteroid, but he didn't start setting them up until until the last couple of days when the AT&T cell tower failed. He had the unit set up with small 6-inch solar panel that would trickle charge them. He had a clear connection with Redoubt Village and was going to add more today to see if he could get the link set up to the mine. Then he would set up modules down the road to and out to Bear Cave. Ellen had fallen when she had a stroke while getting up out of bed. When the doctor got there, Tommy was outside waiting and said they were doing CPR on her. The doc checked for vitals and noticed that she was cold to the touch. After a quick check, he told him that she passed well over an hour ago based on her body temperature. Carol and Sarah and Amber and Lisa broke down crying. Earl and Tommy were struggling to keep their composure. Mick and Danny ran in just then, and Mick screamed no and fell down and wrapped his arms around his mom. Danny knelt next to Sarah, crying as well. Doc Porter motioned Walt out of the room. He told him that he didn't see any signs of physical trauma, so he believed that she either had a heart attack or a massive stroke when she got out of bed. There were no signs of grabbing at the bedding or trying to get up, so she most likely died instantly without suffering. Mary Bethany Donaldson Hawks, she said to herself again, smiling as she ran back from the road. She started her morning run about an hour and a quarter ago. She ran the 7 miles from Walt's house down to the road, and was almost back to the barn where the travel trailer, which she and William were using for their honeymoon, was at. She varied her running speed to build up her long distance endurance in sprinting. She'd run as fast at a fast pace for 3 minutes and sprint for 30 to 40 seconds, then jog for 2 minutes. And repeat the pattern. She was on the jog phase now, smiling again, thinking about how last night after they left the weddings, she and William drove to the mine, got his belongings, for about a half hour, then drove down to, hang on, N-I-N-V-A-L-L-E Valley uh, drove down to Indian Valley to get some of her things from her great grandma's farm, grandparents' farm. When she asked her grandmother if they could clear out one of the bedrooms being used for storage, she said no. Hang on. Then added they would clean it out. Added that she and Lonnie would clean it out and get it ready for them when they came back in 3 days. And if she saw either of them before then, she'd have her dad court-martial her. Then she hugged and kissed Mary and William. When they got back to the trailer, there were lighted LED tea lights all over the inside, and the king-size bed was made and turned down for them. That's when she lost it and started happily crying in William's arms. Now she noticed the snow was falling a bit harder than it was when she started her run. Then she saw an ambulance pulling up to one of the modular homes, plural. that Walt had bought for his had brought in for his family members. Mary wasn't sure, but she thought it might be Sarah's parents. Mary started pumping her legs hard. As Mark, Mary Rogers, Stan, Michael, and others came streaming out of the ranch house, Mary Hawks went flying past them as fast as she could run. Stan, not believing what he just saw, was she just wearing a t-shirt and shorts? That's what I saw, Jenna said, and then added, that's one tough Marine. As they all followed her towards the Ahern's house. The front door was partly open, so Mary went inside. She saw Walt and someone she didn't recognize come out of one of the rooms. She walked towards Walt and heard them saying how she died. Walt said he would call the mortuary and have them come out. The man went back into the room. Walt pulled out his sat phone and saw Mary standing there. Who? Mary asked. Ellen, Sarah's grandmother. Oh, no, Mary said as she rushed past Walt into the room. Walt called the mortician at home and told him what had happened and asked if he could come out immediately. He said he would be right out. When Mark, Mary Rogers, Stan, and Michael and the others arrived, Walt stopped them and told them what happened. Stan sent Michael back to the house to get Martha. David ran off to get his mother. David ran off to get his mother-in-law, Diane. Walt sent the rest of them back to the ranch house and told them he would call them if they were needed. Martha hurried out of the house and came over to Walt. I better go in. I lost a mother and a son. Martha said it, and Walt nodded in agreement. When Diane showed up with Wendy and Ryan, she told them she lost her mother 3 years ago, and she was going to have her kids bring Carol's youngest up to the house for snacks. Walt said that was an excellent idea and called the house to give him a heads up. Rebecca answered the phone and said she was making waffles and pancakes, and that they could have ice cream on them if they wanted. 25 minutes later, the mortuary van arrived. 5 minutes later had left back to town with Ellen's body. David, Nikki, Jenna, and Michael came in and told Sarah the ranch house, and they would tidy up for her. A little later, Linda arrived with Jane and Jake. Brian flagged them down and told them that everyone was now in the ranch house. Four women whose only connection thus far had been through Walt were now developing a bond born of grief through one of life's hardest events, but that bond would grow into something special that they would cherish for the rest of their days. Walt had Sarah in his lap as he stared out the window. The snow was falling harder. The snow was falling harder. It was a gray snow. And I want to add more thing on here. Hang on. Hang on. Come on. I put that in the wrong spot. Walt had Sarah sitting in his lap as he stared out the window. Sarah took a halting breath and buried her face in Walt's neck. The snow was falling harder. It was a gray snow. Danny Elmer called on the radio saying that things were doing fine up the mine and everyone was adjusting to their new way of life with the snow falling. Walt warned them about the ash in the snow, and they said they were dealing with that as well. The horses were in a makeshift barn they built between two of the cargo containers. Two of the cargo containers Mark brought out 2 weeks ago. Bobby Carlson reported that Redoubt Village was settling for the winter. The fish tanks were working great, and the aeroponic containers were producing more than enough vegetables for everyone at Redoubt Village, the mine, Bear Cave, and the main house, including all the ranch hands and their families that had joined them in the bunkhouses. One of the empty cargo containers had been converted into a canning kitchen with dehydrators and freeze dryers. The extra vegetables were being canned in case of crop failure during the winter. It was just before lunch when Carol said she needed to make arrangements with the mortuary on where to bury Ellen. Walt said he had to show Carol and Earl something first. He led them outside to the back patio to a concrete path that led near the bottom of the slope of the hill behind the house. The pathway led through the trees and opened into a clearing that was about 50 feet wide and 160 feet long. Dan had built a combined funerary recess wall and garden mausoleum in the wooded area near the ranch house. It was 120 feet long. It was a 120 feet long wall with 3 rows of casket recesses. There was 12-foot buttress walls on each end and a pillar every 20 feet to hold up the roof that gave some protection for those visiting the departed. Dan was the only one interned there. However, 17 other compartments were labeled. These were for Stan and Martha, Mark and Mary, Thomas and Rebecca, Anna, Walt, Sarah, Michael, Jana, then David and Sally, and one next to each of them that just said saved. And the one at the end was for Elizabeth. Walt had added one for each of Sarah's family, including Ellen, and an extra one next to Lisa, Tommy, and Amber. The one next to Mick had Danny's name on it. Beneath each name were two brass placards, one with their birth date, the other was blank. When Carol saw, let me get the goop out of my eyes here. What? It's 4. When Carol saw what Walt had done, Walt had set aside places for her family, she started crying again. But this time, the tears were of gratitude and love. She choked out that this was perfect and hugged Walt. Sarah had seen the wall before, but not with her family names on it. She lost control of her emotions and rushed to Walt to hug him too. Later that evening, Linda found out that Ellen was a lieutenant in the Vietnam War as a nurse in a must medical unit contained or self-contained transport portable. You know what? I'm going to move this word up here to the front. There we go. She immediately let her husband know. Plans were quickly made and put into action. Okay, and let me shorten that up here. Yeah. All right, that brings us up to the 13th Indian Summer, and we're going to stop here because things really take a twist, even more so in this next little sub-chapter. All right, everyone, thanks for coming by, and I hope that you can make it back tomorrow, and we will cover things. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here, and see you tomorrow. Wait, tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern here for Tactical Tuesday. The topic is bug-in mistakes, and so we'll be talking about that tonight. Take care.